Hi, this is Bob Miles. Over the years, especially since Lennon's tragic death at the hands of a crazed assassin in 1980, much has been written and said about John Lennon. Most accounts relate his beginnings as a member of the group The Beatles and his somewhat offbeat lifestyle. What is most incredible is that this interview took place only hours before his death, the last interview he and Yoko Ono would ever give together again. It was recorded on December 8, 1980, about 12 hours before the shooting. The setting is an office in his New York record label, Geffen Records. John and Yoko began with a discussion of their recently completed double fantasy album.
Came over me all of a sudden, love. I didn't know what came over me. I was possessed by this rock and roll devil, you know. Suddenly I got the songs, you know, just suddenly, like had, if you pardon the expression, diarrhea of creativity. And in fact, we went in the studio and cut about 22 tracks and cut it down to 14 to make the dialogue. They were all dialogue songs, meaning that we were writing as if it was a play and we were the two characters in it. But it's real life, but not real as well, because on a song or a record, it can't be real. I mean, we could have taken it a step further and made this record so maybe she would be called Ziggy Stardust and I would be called Tommy. And then you would call it a rock opera, you see? But we always worked from our own selves as near as we could. So the album, the work we did on this thing is really a play, but we're using ourselves as the characters. And what we sing about in the record and the songs are real diaries of how we feel. But also, it's always not really, really real because it's a song and it's on a record and you project it in a different way.
It was bigger than both of us, in a sense. I mean, we didn't try to be together, and also we're still not trying to be together or anything like that. It just seems like a very functional relationship. And this time when we were going to make Double Fantasy, because we haven't been working together as artists for such a long time. So we were both very scared. You know. I thought we were going to start fighting like dog and a cat, you know, like really fight over remix or whatever. So I was depressed about it, and John felt that too, probably. And when we went to the studio, we found that we were somehow we were ticking and starting to work together in a very inspired way, and we couldn't believe it. It was really truly a dialogue in that sense, you know, that I would make one song and sing it to him over the phone, and then he reacts, you know, to that in a way, and then he would write another song, and vice versa, you know, he would write a song, and I was saying, oh, all right, that's how he feels, okay, how about this? You know, it was really interesting.
We had discussed going back in the studio, but I didn't have the material, but I wasn't worried about it because I thought, well, I haven't done it for a long time, maybe if I switch into that, there'll be something there, but it just sort of came. And I called her because I was in Bermuda with Sean, and she was here in New York. And I called her and I said, well, look, we were talking about recording. It must have triggered something off here because I'm getting all this stuff. And I started singing it to her down the phone or playing a cassette. And she would call back 2 hours later and say, well, when you sang that, Losing You, or she'd come back with Moving On or something. And then I'd say, oh, Moving On, okay. And then I'd be swimming or doing anything, suddenly something else would come, like starting over. I'd say, hey, well, look, this is what happened. And it started working like, coming out like that. So then I couldn't wait to get back and start then. I suddenly had all this material. After not really trying, but not trying either for 5 years. I'd been so locked in the home environment and completely switched my way of thinking that I didn't really think about music at all. My guitar was sort of hung up behind the bed, literally. And I don't think I took it down in 5 years.
Both of us were very nervous. But at the same time, we were so excited with the songs, you know. We knew they were going to be good. And we had 22 songs. And it was very hard for us to choose for the first album, like that. And we decided that we should put songs like Losing You and Moving On in, though some people might think they're sort of negative. But, and we tried to make sure that the whole tone of the album would be on a positive side, because that's very important. But to throw that in was very important to show that people go through that too. It's like a catharsis, you know. that people will go through that with us and see what happens. And then in the end, hard times are over for a while maybe, but you know, that sort of thing. I wanted, and we wanted to show a real picture, not just sort of all pretty, you know.
It inspired me completely. As soon as she would sing something to me or play the cassette down the phone, I would, within 10 or 15 minutes, whether I wanted to work or not, if you call it work, I would suddenly get this song coming to me. And I always felt that the best songs were ones that came to you rather than... I do have the ability to, you know, if you ask me to write a song for a movie or something, and they say it's about this, I can sit down and sort of make a song. I wouldn't be thrilled with it, but I can make a song like that. But I find it difficult to do that, but I can do it. You know, I call it craftsmanship, you know. I've had enough years at it to sort of put something together, but I never enjoyed that. I like it to be inspirational from the spirit. And being with Sean and switching off from the business sort of allowed that channel to be free for a bit. You know, it wasn't always on. It was switched off, and when I sort of switched it on again, zap, all this stuff came through. So now we're already, well, we did enough material for the next album, almost half as much, and we're already talking about the third album, so we're full of vim and vigor.
It was very strange. Just when we finished stringing the songs together for the album, and we were saying, it's over, we're finished, you know, we strung it together, and then in the next room somebody was saying, quick, come over here because starting over is playing. So we just rushed to that room, you know, and we heard it for the first time with that ding, 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 you know. By the way, that's the ding, 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 that's sort of a bell for wishes, you know. And if you make a wish and you hear that ding, 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 you know, and your wish will come true. So it's that one. So it sounded so good, you know, so good, and we just felt like, oh, well, we did it then, we did it, you know.
But sometimes you think, wow, yeah, great, this is great, we've done it. And then the next time you hear it, well, she's not quite the same as I'll think, no, this is not right, it's not right. Yeah. So I would go yay and nay on it all the time. But I think, basically, we thought, if people will listen to it for what it is and not listen to it with preconceived ideas of how it ought to be or as compared to something else, then if people could listen to it just as if it wasn't even John and Yoko, just that it came over the radio and you accept it or not accept it as you hear it, not as you expect to hear John Lennon or expect to hear Yoko Ono or expect to hear an ex-Beatle or expect to hear whatever, or having read a good review or a bad review. Forget about that. Just get it on the radio, I thought, and it'll be all right.
The way I looked at it was probably it's an album that's not going to do too well, but in the end, you know, maybe like 2 years later or something, people say, that was good, because I knew that the theme was good, I knew the dialogue was important, etc., and each song was all right, you know. So I had a feeling that even if it takes a long time, people would know about it, you know. But I didn't know it was going to be that instant, you know.
I was taking Sean and the nanny and the family to a little, except for Mother, who was here selling cows, in Bermuda to the Botanical Gardens for lunch, to the Italian restaurant, because I could get espresso and Sean could get some junk food. And I was just walking in, I looked down, and it was a botanical garden, and it said, we're in the office, folks, that's why it's buzzing. It said, Frisia, Double Fantasy. And it was some flowers. And I just thought, Double Fantasy, that's a great title. Because it has so many meanings that you couldn't even begin to think what it means. So it means everything you can think of. I mean, it's a double couple. It's real life, but it's still a fantasy because it's now in plastic and in photograph. And it's fantastic. And it sort of seemed to be perfect for a title of the album. And there's two of us. And it just sort of says it all somehow without really saying anything. It says everything. And it's a flower, actually.
And also, you know, in the 10 years, we learned that John has his own fantasy, and I have mine too, you know. And that's all right, you see. And we don't have to unify our thoughts totally. I mean, there's an overall plan that we have, or a dream that we have, which we share, you know. But then we come from a totally different background. I mean, in a sense of men and women. And that's fine. So we're showing the difference of the fantasies too.